The minute you start take care of yourself, take control of your own health, almost in a matter of several months, you will see the difference.
It's great to have you on to educate the public about the importance of gut health and how it does tie to cancer, because you're an oncologist.
Top 3 cancer risk. Number 1 is aging. Number 2 is stress. Number 3 is particular personality that they tend to be stressed. As long as you nourish from inside, a lot of disease just disappeared.
Welcome to the show. I'm Yenitza Munoz. Today, I am honored to be interviewing Dr. Hu. She is an oncologist and the founder of Ferment Pro. Thank you so very much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Thank you, Yanni.
And I love that you have your machine here. Now, this is a fermentation machine where you can make kombucha and so many more beverages and foods. We're going to get in all of that description shortly, but I want to ask you a few questions about your career and what inspired you to create Ferment Pro. Yeah, so you've had an incredible journey from Western medicine to ancient healing traditions. What inspired you to become an oncologist and to really dive into the world of unfortunate, diseases like cancer?
Being an oncologist, it was actually part of the training. I was leading by a mentor into this field. I was doing a oncology rotation with one of the big cancer center director. Because I do have the very positive outlook of life, I also really enjoy challenging cases. That's why after a month of consultation with Dr. D. Simone, that was one of the very well-known cancer specialists in Kentucky, he just asked me, send me your CV. You need to do oncology. And at that given time, I'm so thankful because I haven't really know the depth of oncology, but he led me into the field and I enjoy every single minute of it afterward. It's been 20 years.
Wow, 20 years.
Yeah.
And within those 20 years, I'm sure you've seen an array of increase of cancer.
Yes. That's also, with the course of treating cancer patients, I also realized a lot of cancer can be prevented. And that's one thing I'm become more and more holistic, although I'm totally trained, solid in Western medicine, but I incorporate a lot of healing theory magic through food, through consultation with the mental therapy, and through other alternative approaches. So yeah, I think over the course, the experience asked me make me more overall wholesome healer rather than just treating cancer.
What is the most common cancer you've seen that has become more and more common?
I this is my 20th year. For the first 8 years of my practice, I was the one and only female in a very big group. So for that, I have a lot of breast cancer women. I mean, I have overwhelming large number in the practice is breast cancer. And breast cancer right now, you see younger and younger women. It's sad, it's alarming. It's also very important to let women understand a lot of times breast cancer is not pure genetic, it's lifestyle.
And that is true because they always say, oh, well, it's genetics, but why is there such a rise with women that don't have a history of it in their family? Now there's been some cases of men with breast cancer, maybe because they have too much estrogen, but also, as you said, diet, lifestyle. Maybe where they live, there could be a lot of pollutants in their tap water. There's a whole array of I don't want to say 100% it's all data. They're still looking into it more and why it is increasing. And that's why I wanted to interview you today, because you are all about preventative care, gut health, non-processed foods, how to eat clean, and how to educate people on this, because we're so busy here in the US that we're so used to just eating out, eating high processed meals with seed oils. So my next question is that why you created Ferment Pro, to help people with their gut health, if they want to make kombucha at home, make their own wine at home, their own food like yogurts, cottage cheese, etc.?
This little guy came as a surprise. I really have a long story behind it. This is my 20th year, and for the first, I think 18 years ago, there was 2 things happened, totally changed my perspective. And the first one is my second daughter was born. It was a very much a blessing, a joy, but into 2 months of her life, we realized she is special. She has really severe allergy. So at that point is the pediatrician said is eczema. But if you have tiny little patch of thick skin, that's okay. If it's cover your entire body in a 2-month-old baby and it's itching, it's irritating, and it's basically is a disaster. It's a horrible challenge for us. So we went to the pediatrician, and then they said, okay, steroid and with a little topical antibacterial and antifungal. Seems to work just briefly. The minute you withdraw the medicine, it came back. So it was, I think at 4 months old, we did the food allergy panel. And then she's allergic to anything and everything under the sun. And I was nursing her, so I absolutely have to change what I was eating, force myself to look into the ingredient I put into my mouth so I can really make sure she's not going to have allergic reaction after I ate certain things. So that was the beginning, and I start to cook very, very clean food. And I realized the food can be powerful. The second thing happened the same time, almost 2 years into my practice. I start seeing different cases. At the very beginning, you usually just practice along the guidelines. And then one of the cases is a Spanish-speaking grandpa of 72 coming with very bad lymphoma, diffuse large B-cell, aggressive stage 4. And he chose not to get treatment. He said, I live a good life. I don't want to suffer chemotoxicities. So he went home. But what really amazes me is his cancer was reduced 80% just by a plant in his backyard. And that is aloe vera. And so that was, from that point I realized, wow, food can do this. And it's actually really not a lot. He blend a pound of aloe vera, a pound of honey, and then 1 ounce of liquor. And just 1 ounce a day, 10 days on, 10 days off.
Mm-hmm.
So
I've heard 80%. Of that remedy.
Yeah, this is a very common Latin American remedy. And then I have an 82-year-old grandma who's really frail and have myeloma. And so it couldn't handle anything. And we basically sent her for hospice. But what shocked us is later on, a supplement dosing of reishi mushroom really stopped the progression of the myeloma. And later on, she had another 2 years of good quality of life. I think that's almost the same time, there's another 55-year-old high school librarian. She was diagnosed with stage 4 endometrial cancer. I told her it's not curable, so I give her, we call palliative chemo, hopefully slow down the progression and relieve some symptom. After 4 rounds, and she said, I'll go home and die. I would never take chemo. It was really bad. But then later on, the follow-up, she's getting better and better. I wouldn't believe my eye. I was like, what did you eat? She told me a herbal mixture called Isiac tea. And that was a herbal remedy from Canada more than 100 years ago. So all these things happened together, just eye-opening. I was like, wow, I was trained by the most powerful evidence-based medicine, but you just cannot argue with success, right? So from that point, I start to at least have an open mind to look into the holistic healing part of it, especially using food. And then later on, with my older daughter's allergy, that I find out clean food is not enough. And that comes is the fermentation process. That fermented food can really treat autoimmune disease and allergy and enhance the immune system. And that's what this little guy is. So it's my journey of almost 18 years. My younger daughter is graduating high school next week.
Wow. I love hearing this because, nowadays so many doctors turn to big pharma, and you being an oncologist, you specialize in treating people with cancer. And you're not just saying chemo's the only way or pharmaceutical drugs are the only way. You are literally saying diet is very important. Holistic remedies can really help, or fermented foods. And it makes sense because cancer is so common now and it wasn't as common as it was in the past. Maybe it's because we didn't have all these processed foods and chemicals in our tap water and chemicals that we put on our bodies, certain deodorants that we put that have harsh chemicals or shampoos, etc. having an anti-inflammatory diet that helps our gut health and also just helps us fight disease better is the way to go. As you said, there was a man from Mexico that had that remedy, which was aloe vera, tequila, and honey.
Yeah.
He was doing a little shot of that. Probably, it must have been a good quality tequila, probably a pure one. And he probably did a little bit, not too much. For anyone who's listening, we're not condoning to overdrink.
Yeah, that's only
but just for a little.
Suppress the bacteria.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it just shows you how an anti-inflammatory diet is very important. I'm new in the whole fermented foods in the sense of like, I go to the supermarket and I'll buy kombucha or I'll buy cottage cheese or a low-fat Greek yogurt, but I don't know how to make it. So I think it's really cool that you have a machine that can help people make it at home.
Yeah. So a little bit about my background. I actually, before I become a doctor, I have the PhD in microbiology and immunology. I literally can grow anything if you give me the right media, the right temperature. So that really kind of helps. So when we decide to really, this machine, like I said, come as a surprise because when my older daughter was 13 years old, adolescent, she had the autoimmune condition. And that was to the point only steroid and Zyrtec, daily Zyrtec can help. You know, as a mother, I just don't like to see my kids on medication. And as a doctor, I tell you, all the prescription drugs have side effect, any single one of them. If the benefit outweigh the risk, yeah, you take them. If it's average, I would prefer food or other easy natural remedies. So for her case, the pediatrician say, go to Costco. Zyrtec is cheaper that way. You can buy a year's supply for whatever. And
is Zyrtec over the counter?
Yeah, it is over-the-counter antihistamine, non-drowsy one. And to me, as a mother, I just refuse to do that. So I think that was 8.5 years ago when I first realized I have a new challenge now, you know, as the little one just getting a little better and everything seemed to be back on track. And then the older one have the autoimmune condition. And so I kind of brought up my textbook. I did a lot of year of schooling. You know, I have internal medicine, I have immunology, and I have nutrition. I taught myself over the years. And also the traditional Chinese medicine, because I try to reach out to the different alternative approach. And by then, I was cooking almost 10 years for my younger one. So I was okay cook. I know how to kind of navigate around the kitchen. And also I have quite a bit of exposure of oncology patient using alternative approach. Because, you know, when everything started 18 years ago, I start to learn. And day in, day out, patient feed me information. I use my scientific background, try to dice out why it makes sense, why it works. How can I use in different things? So by the time my daughter older one has the allergy, that was 8.5 years ago, I actually know quite a bit about food. And so for her case, I realized this is the thing, I don't have a remedy. So I dive into the textbook, and then it's a message very clear. Just little by little, it's like gut health. Gut health can help support, optimize immune system, trying to alleviate autoimmune disease. And I don't know the mechanism, but apparently all different angle that pointing gut is important. So that's how I start to making. And I happened to be like work in the lab before, and it was okay to work in the kitchen. So I make all kinds of fermented food, including kombucha, kefir, yogurt, you name it. And then kids love kombucha. Kombucha is a very delicious, sweet, tangy, and also carbonated. You can add all kinds of flavor, like the fruit flavor or the flower aroma is a really fun drink to have. So we start to drink that one, and a month into it, my daughter called and said, I haven't taken any medicine. I haven't have flare up at all.
And also with your machine too, you're going to be creating a cookbook to go with it where you can help guide people like myself on how to make the foods and also how to make the kombucha correctly so it doesn't have alcohol, right?
Yes. So kombucha, if you ferment it at home, it's actually on the top is covered with a filter paper. and then that's get the culture exposed to air. When the fermentation goes with air, is the fermentation pathway goes into vinegar pathway. But if you cover it, cap it, if, for example, the store-bought one in the beer bottle, absolutely no oxygen, and then the anaerobic fermentation goes to the pathway, have alcohol. So that's one thing. But I do have a cookbook. So years after making fermented food, I find out as long as you have the right substrate, right starter, the right temperature, everything just like you're making a dough for bread, as easy as that.
Wow, that's interesting. And for our audience, you can go to her website, which we will be putting here on the bottom of the screen throughout the podcast, to learn more on how to purchase this product and learn more on how to like make kombucha and Greek yogurt and other stuff that she'll have in her cookbook on her website. But going back to gut health, you know, I've been really into my fitness and my healthy eating habits for over 10 years, but I feel like
That's
I'm learning
good.
something new every day. In the last few years, I've been really reading a lot about gut health because in the past, maybe because there wasn't a lot of information out there online yet, but there is and there was and there wasn't, right? Because there was still lack of maybe funding for more studies for our gut health. So with that being said, it's so interesting how now a lot of physicians like yourself are saying that if you have poor gut health, it could lead to an array of issues. You know, Alzheimer's, also cancer, as what we're speaking about right now, eczema, as you mentioned. There's type 2 diabetes is a huge issue here in the United States, but it's all in our gut. And also, if we have a bad gut, we have a bad brain, we're sluggish, people are depressed.
Yes.
Depression, mental health issues, unfortunately, are a big issue here in the US compared to other countries. And then when they have done studies of maybe the food in other countries, like the Mediterranean diet has a lot of anti-inflammatory properties. So that's why there's not a lot of certain issues that they have with their health, and they actually have better longevity than we do. So this whole like world that we are learning about our own guts that is inside of us right now is so interesting because we have like the good bacteria, the bad bacteria, and kombucha is the good bacteria that can also help fight disease.
Yeah. Gut health, I think, is so important. It just under-recognized for decades. If you think our human body, the part interact with the outside world is the gut. We consume the food. The food will be transformed into the nutrient the body can need and the energy body can use. And if you don't really have a good gut, it's like the engine of the car. You don't really have the fuel. And clinically, what I really observe is whoever have a functional gut in a way, I always ask them, for chemo patient, I always ask them very simple question. Okay, can you eat? Can you go to the bathroom regularly? Do you have issue with nausea? Do you have issue with vomiting? Those are the very simple thing. It's because as long as their gut is functioning, they can handle chemotherapy. And the same disease, if they can handle chemotherapy, majority of them do a lot better for whoever cannot even handle. And those people have really bad gut health in the way they've been having diarrhea all the time. Their gut irregularity is just not, it's just constantly a problem. So that is one observation. So whoever have well-balanced, healthy gut, they do well, even for cancer treatment. And then if you really look at the ancient medicinal system, like traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, the traditional Indian medicine, as well as the Greek medicine, that the start of the modern medicine, they all recognize gut health as the foundation of everything. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, said all disease start from the gut. But nowadays, I think when we're busy with our daily routine, we just kind of lost in the forest. We never really think, wow, all the health is you have to make sure whatever you eat, you can absorb, you don't feel bad, and then you can eliminate, and you can use them, everything. So this is why gut health is so important.
And also, I think over the few decades here in the US, and I know other countries have also adapted into this bad habit, is that we have seen food as such a money-making monopoly.
Yeah.
Where how many fast food chains can we have on this block? How many Starbucks can we have on this block? It's not so much about the quality, it's the quantity. Restaurants compete with each other. $5.99 for a super Big Mac and all these crazy things. Well, actually, there's probably more now. I've heard with inflation, everything's gone up. But I don't really eat at I'm not going to say the name, but I don't really eat at those fast food restaurants. But nonetheless, our culture has become that way, where there's a place to stop to eat in every corner, and it's not the best quality because it's affordable, and everyone is in competition with each other to make money. And with that being said, we've kind of lost the way. Hopefully, with now all the health issues that are coming about from, decades of this, maybe restaurants are starting to change their ways, take away some food dyes, take away some processed meats and horrible refined seed oils. I know as a kid for myself in the 90s, being a millennial, we were fed Go-Gurts and Pop-Tarts as a fun snack to have or something quick to have. And I grew up in a Mexican household, so we didn't really have a lot of those. But when we did, it was so cool to have a Pop-Tart. Because I was like, oh, we have a Pop-Tart. But my parents were so innocent. They didn't understand that red dye and yellow food coloring, orange and blue food coloring was so toxic. I remember also there were doctors putting kids on Ritalin and other medications that are just horrible for children. But it was either the doctor wasn't so much aware about it then than what they are now. But it all goes back to diet. And you who have kids, you have 2 daughters and a son, you really saw the need for a healthy diet and, fermented products.
Yes, and also I have to say, as oncologist, I see the society going so fast-paced. The life is so stressful for majority of the young people. It's actually one of the high risk for not simply chronic disease or acute illness with the immune system. It's actually cancer. I have my personal take for the cancer risk. Genetic, of course, sometimes if you're born with genes, that's bad luck. But smoking, drinking is we all recognize as bad. But besides all that, the genetic, the top 3 cancer risk is, number 1 is aging. Number 2 is stress. Number 3 is particular personality, that they tend to be stressed. They tend to be perfectionist. So aging, we cannot stop. But if you eat wrong, you age a lot quicker. And then stress is the piles of work, more and more. Every profession have a deadline, have a different requirement to finish sooner, to make more. And so everybody seems on the go and nonstop. And then the third one is the society also expect every profession to be performed at the best they can. And then how can you perform the top capacity all your life? So when you cannot really do that, the personality still drive you to perform, to be the best, and then your physical capacity cannot do it. And then you haven't take care of yourself with the years of not eating right, not take care of your body. Mm-hmm. This all piled up together. That's cancer.
And to add to that, all of that is correct, but also certain foods, I think, cause anxiety as well. Like people will overdo it with caffeine, or they'll overdo it with highly sugar foods. Or like you mentioned, sometimes they're on medications. Like I've seen this in my family. Somebody who has type 2 diabetes will take their medicine and then just eat horrible throughout the day, and they feel sluggish, they feel weird, but it's like the medicine's supposed to help their glucose, but then they're spiking it again. And there's just so much going on, and I feel that people really need to slow down and really have an epiphany of their health and see how they can stop eating certain foods, or maybe just simply stop going to the regular place that has the MSG, that has the corn syrup, etc.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That is indeed very true. That's I think if you really take good care of your food, you pretty much can eliminate about half of the chronic disease and a significant portion of the cancer. Because one of the important fact is we do have our immune system to fight off the infection, the cancer, we have a healing mechanism inside of us. But 70% of the immune system is located in the small bowel, which is part of the gut in between stomach as well as and colon. It's the main nutrition absorption site. It also has the 70% of the lymphoid tissue, the Peyer's patch underneath. And if you really take care your diet right, your immune system will be very much nourished and they're up to the work. But if you don't take care of them, how can you really rely on them, say, you know what, help me fight the cancer? It's not going to happen.
So when people eat, it goes into your small intestine, and then that's where it holds onto the nutrients, and then it takes the waste and it takes it to the large intestine, right? Yeah. And we'll put some visuals here on the podcast, but I remember learning about this in school as well, and then it goes into the large intestine and comes out. But essentially, it's the waste that comes out, the stuff that was bad for us. And another thing with gut health, too, sometimes we eat so much bad food that there's, like you mentioned, we're affecting the lining of the small intestine that's using the absorption. So there's been a spike of women that are having issues, you know, with like miscarriages and stuff, and they're trying to tie it into like maybe highly oil foods because of how the absorption. There's so much data now that's coming out with oncologists like yourself that are telling women like avoid these certain foods like fried chicken or highly processed meats like hamburgers,
and alcohol.
And alcohol. Well, you shouldn't be drinking alcohol pregnant anyways, but nonetheless, there's just so many issues that we consume and we absorb. And you can see it in our skin. You can even see it on the white part of our eyes. When people have yellow coloring, it's because of their diet usually. But with all that being said, with fermented foods, you know, like cheese, cottage cheese, yogurt, kombucha, gosh, the list goes on. There's a lot of foods that we can, a clean wine, you know, but not, or, you know, certain types of, the cheeses I already have mentioned, but there's a lot of foods that create the good bacteria.
All the seasonings are fermented, yes.
Raisins are kind of fermented.
Those are actually
Pickles?
sun-dried.
Sun-dried.
Pickle definitely. If you don't add vinegar, let it ferment over time. Yes, that's natural fermented. But you can also have a vinegar pickled. That's a fast pickle with the acid. But all these things are, I think the fermentation, if you really look at human culinary history, is almost started at the same time as we domesticate farm animals and cultivate crops, because it's a natural way of preserve food. And our ancestors find out this is not simply we can preserve food, it can make it more nutritious and help us to really fight off disease and start a healing from inside. So the beautiful part of the fermented food is the analogy I use all the time is thinking the body is like a fruit tree. Whoever garden, they will know the fruit tree, if you want the fruit tree to produce fruit, you have to give fertilizer. Water doesn't work. Water keeps it alive, but you keep it flourish and produce a lot of fruit, you need fertilizer. And if you use the kitchen scraps as fertilizer, if you simply scatter them around the tree, it doesn't work. That's why most of the farm have a compost bin. That's what it is. You throw all the kitchen waste into that bin, let microorganisms to do the job, break down all the food into very nutrition-rich compost, and then you pour on the tree. That's extremely nourishing, and that's why the tree can absorb. And the same thing for fermented food. Fermented food is a beneficial bacteria controlled decomposition process. So we're talking about beneficial bacteria, which is probiotic. They're beneficial to our body. And then when they ferment food outside, they break down the food from the largest particle to the smallest element. And by the time you eat them, they're already pre-digest. And when you eat the pre-digest, externally break down food, everything goes to the stomach. Stomach doesn't do the absorption, but the small bowel does. And so goes to the small bowel, everything just absorb. In nutrition-wise, any food fermented, their nutrition value goes up exponentially. This is why. And then if you know small bowel has the 70% of immune system underneath the mucosal, So better nutrition, better nourishment for the immune system, enhance its function, and then also whatever leftover not being absorbed go to the large bowel, the colon. And if the fermented food has probiotic, which is the beneficial bacteria in there, they will do wonders in the colon. That's they balance the microbiome. They produce the beneficial short-chain fatty acid, all those good things. So fermented food indeed have dual benefit, especially some fermented food you like, for example, kimchi or yogurt. You don't cook them. You preserve the basic is a mixture of a substrate plus the bacteria in there, and then you eat it. So the breakdown nutrient nourished your body, and the little bacteria, or sometimes it's yeast, they will go to the colon and help you even further.
Do you think that fermented foods can help prevent colon cancer? Because we're talking so much about the large intestine and the small intestine and fermented foods and gut health. And unfortunately, now in 2025, there's been a rise of young people as young as 21 years old with colon cancer. And doctors say it could be the American diet, could be that the American diet doesn't have enough fiber. And so they're pushing these young Gen Zs or millennials to up their fiber intake, whether it's supplements or eating it in their meals. But what is your take on that?
It's very interesting. So fiber is very important. Right now, the main emphasis of gut health is they're talking about probiotics. So the little player, the microorganism, including bacteria and yeast. But I think they missed the big picture of the probiotic is only partially working in the colon. And fermented food, on the other hand, have dual benefit in the small bowel as well. There was a study by the Stanford professor, Dr. Stone, I believe his name. It was a very famous couple. They are really big on microbiome. They did a study on, the study was actually published in the Cell magazine, which is a really prestigious scientific journal. They compared, I think they took about 40 normal individual and divide them into two groups, high fiber diet as well as kimchi diet. So I forgot how much they asked them to eat kimchi, but 10 weeks into this diet, they test the different biomarker in the blood for inflammatory levels as well as the microbiome profile in the stool. And the interesting finding is whoever eat kimchi, their inflammatory marker is significantly lower in the blood, not in the fiber group. So that indeed confirmed the whole idea of probiotic work for the colon. You go to those probiotic goes to the colon, balance the microbiome, the gut microbiome, and they ferment fiber. They generate the beneficial stuff, and they also push the gut to move. So the gut regularity, probiotic can do it. However, what really does the big thing, decrease inflammatory marker, is actually fermented food. That's kimchi.
Wow. And that's so interesting to hear because, online articles like MD, et cetera, they're always like fiber, probiotic, but also fermented foods, I feel like doesn't get enough credit. And it's something that our ancestors have been eating, no matter where you think you've come from, whatever 23andMe has told you, that back then there wasn't refrigerators. Refrigerators weren't invented until around the Great Depression. Yeah. And you just would have to cook your food. Yeah. But then what if you're in a situation where you're unable to cook your food? You don't have the supplies to. So certain foods you can't cook, right? So you just have to ferment them. And it's almost as if our ancestors helped create that gut health for us that helped us thrive today. But now our food is filled with all these chemicals that we're unable to digest. And unfortunately, millennials and the other generations before us are suffering from it. But hopefully with information like what you're talking about on my podcast and just getting out there on the internet can really help educate people. Going back to the idea of medicine today, unfortunately, Big Pharma is all about prescribing things or just sending someone to chemo, but they don't ever give a prescription to eating healthy. They never say, what is your diet really like? And if they do, it's because it's someone like yourself that cares about them. There's doctors out there that maybe are just so busy and stressed that they just want to write the script. But I applaud you for really getting to know your patients and really wanting to know what their daily lifestyle is and how you can really help them fight cancer.
That's what I'm more and more into. Like I said, I was so kind of a well trained in Western medicine, but then I realized a lot of time you have to treat the root cause. When you see young people with allergy, young people with, for example, a lot of young girls have polycystic ovary syndrome, PCOS. It's
Very
not
common.
Yeah.
Mostly they said that women who are now in the ages of 18 and over, when they start having their pap smears and ultrasounds or whatnot, that the increase of in these last few years have been up. I think I saw an article where, can't recall the name of the article, but you can look this up. It's gone up like 70%.
It is common to the point that I usually have a very small social circle because I work a very busy life. But then I've encountered two of the early 20-year-old, very bright girl. They all have it as my daughter's friend. And my daughter just graduated from college. The older one said, "Oh, it's fairly common." I'm like, wow, those
It
girls
shouldn't be common.
Yeah. So first of all, it should not be common. Number two is they really need to be educated. If they have that in that young age, when they reach to 30, they feel like they about to settle, want to have baby. It's going to be very difficult because their ovary is really not functioning well over the past almost a decade, if that's the case. And that's one thing I think by bring back the ancient tradition of eating natural, healthy, and hopefully we can eliminate those type of conditions, like a PCOS,
And premenopause.
yeah, and then give those girls a normal life. Those people live in the blue zone. They don't have medicines. They don't rely on frequent scans. They don't rely on frequent screenings, but they live the longest possible because they actually live a life supposed to live. You take care of yourself, both meals, rest, mental, and then move around. And then basically you have the best source of nourishment by eating the right type of food.
Yes, very well said. And for all those, who are unaware of the blue zone, it's usually like a Mediterranean diet, but also in other countries too, if you're just eating clean. My grandmother lived to be almost 100, and she had my mom at 53. She had 12 children, but she grew up in an area in Mexico where it was just so common to get milk from your farm animals, from your cows. You would make goat cheese from the goats. You would, everything was fresh. They didn't add any preservatives, and there wasn't any labels of food that you couldn't pronounce. So at the end of the day, everyone should be very cautious when they go to the supermarket. I do now. I feel like the last few years, I always thought I was eating healthy because I thought it was a trusted brand and that I was at a certain supermarket like Whole Foods or Sprouts or Trader Joe's. But now I always read ingredients. If there's something that looks foreign, I can't pronounce it, I'm not buying it, because my health is more important than saving $1 or $2, because that yogurt is $2 cheaper than the high-end one that only says milk, salt, and enzymes.
Yeah.
And so I'm very cautious about that now. So to our audience, just be mindful of what you purchase at the supermarket. I know it's hard, takes time to look through ingredients, but at the end of the day, your health is number one. Again, you being an oncologist and you being very real about cancer prevention instead of just writing a quick script. Have you ever seen a case where you told them to change their diet, but they still needed chemo? What is that like?
So back to that 72-year-old Spanish-speaking grandpa. So he had an amazing response with the aloe vera, but then he called me later on. He said, I get so sick of the aloe vera. So he stopped taking it. And in a couple of months, the lymphoma come back. So
that diet was literally suppressing the lump.
Yeah.
So he could have kept going, but he just wanted a quick fix, get it taken out.
Yeah, what's happening is sometimes if it's not something pleasant and sustainable, it doesn't taste the best. So they just get tired of drinking that. I think for him, he's the guy of his age and his way the very beginning, he doesn't want chemo. Later on, he said, you know what? I cannot really drink this for the rest of my life. Let me take chemo. So indeed, I brought him back. I gave him the standard CHOP R. I cured him. So he lived another 8 years afterward, died from something else. But the point is, I think alternative is alternative because we don't know exactly the dosage and the duration of using, but it doesn't hurt. In the case that, well, we don't have a good remedy, alternative medicine is a very useful tool. And for majority of the cancer patient nowadays, cancer oncology right now is the prime time. Is we have so many treatment. Doesn't mean that we tell you to go ahead, abuse yourself, get cancer. But right now, cancer treatment is probably the most exciting phase because so many cancer patients, they just do well for a long time. For example, I think immunotherapy, that was almost a revolutionary to the solid tumor, including blood cancer like lymphoma. Because years ago, stage 4 lung cancer, people die 6 to 10 months. Right now, I have so many patients live 5 years still around.
Mm-hmm. So it's a good thing to have a good diet if you're on chemo, because I know there's people that, what I'm trying to say, I'm not condoning anyone to get off chemo if they have cancer. I'm not saying that. But it is helpful to have a clean diet when you're on chemo because think about it. You're on chemo and then you feel like having hot Cheetos or you feel like having a crazy greasy hamburger. It's not a good
Usually
mix.
on chemo, you cannot handle that. So
exactly,
chemo
right.
kill your appetite right there. Mm-hmm. But that's indeed, I mentioned, for whoever have a relative healthy functional gut, they handle chemo a lot better than someone who's been really abusing themselves, their gut never been regular. And those people around or to chemo afterward, they will have trouble with uncontrollable diarrhea or nausea, vomiting or whatever, and they're so dehydrated, so weak, and they say, forget it, I'm not going to take treatment. But whoever their gut is functioning, they get treatment. Majority of the chemo, you'll feel bad for a couple of days, and then you'll feel good again. So for that, healthy gut is a big plus for whoever getting chemotherapy. Even you get cancer, keep the gut healthy is super important.
Do you think there needs to be more funding in the medical field to maybe find a cure for cancer with a mix of, like we're talking about, with fermented foods, clean diet, do studies with people in the blue zone, people that literally have never even touched a candy bar, or maybe they don't drink polluted tap water. Do you think there needs to be more studies on how to really cure cancer, also prevent it, obviously? And at the end of the day, yes, chemo has helped people get into remission and kept them alive longer. But me personally, I think there's a lack of funding. I don't know if it's because Big Pharma doesn't want people to be 100% cured, or maybe there's just not enough money that needs to be put in because it's such an expensive thing to fund. What are your thoughts on that?
I think cancer, the reason we're doing so well is because all the significant clinical research and also basic research. But what's happening is integrated research, in a way, combined functional medicine, alternative medicine, to the standard Western medicine is still not fully being recognized. Several big cancer centers, for example, in New York, Sloan Kettering, and then City of Hope here, and bunch of I think MD Anderson, those are the big name I know, and there's a bunch of other cancer centers. When they realize, they start to doing more clinical trial on that. But then because all the trial needs funding, for example, they said, okay, compare someone eating a bowl of blueberry versus someone don't eat blueberry, and what's the outcome on their prostate cancer antigen level? I mean, the trial needs money. And if blueberry, you can get it anywhere, it's not like a pharmaceutical company sponsor it. Where the money coming from? Mm-hmm. So I think in the big world of Cancer Institute, when they have enough donations and when they have enough fundings, they are fully aware that besides the standard Western medicine, there's a whole vast majority of a medicinal approach can help, acupunctures, infrared saunas, and then some other, they use simply just, the Chinese qigong to really treat those. Those are, if you really combine all together, that would be the ideal world of treating cancer. We approach cancer at a different angle, make sure patients have good mental health, have best financial support, and have the good functional gut, and let's working on give chemo drug and with the best diet. That would be the real beautiful picture of treating cancer. And if that happen, miracle happen. I see so many miracle cases when there happen to be God's blessing and things happen like that, and they just do well. And so, yeah, I agree with you. I think more and more we need to be kind of raise the awareness that besides standard Western medicine, we can really combine a lot of other very powerful medicinal system to help people to regain health.
Yes, very well said, because as you brought up, if some elaborate large company is donating money to a big pharma company for cancer research, that big pharma company doesn't have any ties to supermarkets. So at the end of the day, they're looking for their own version of alternatives. But if we just now, with the proper education and awareness, if some person was to donate private money to a type of research for colon cancer, breast cancer, even something of Alzheimer's disease, which is not cancer, but what does it do? It all goes back to diet. Going back into the beginning of this podcast, we were talking about genetics. Yes, unfortunately, that we might have bad luck and have certain genetics where we're prone to certain diseases more than someone else. But having a good diet or a life with little stress or a good workout routine, you don't have to be lifting weights every day at the gym. You can just go for a daily walk, or if you live somewhere where it's not pleasant to walk outside, maybe you live in a very urban area or in a place that's very cold or too hot, you can buy a treadmill. There's lots of cool treadmills you can buy online for a few $100s and put in front of the TV, put on your favorite movie and walk for an hour or two. So I think it's about the habits and education.
It is totally lifestyle. It's
and
a package.
People to understand that where the funding goes, the research goes as well. But
Yeah,
we should definitely keep educating ourselves and look for credible sources like yourself. You are a medical doctor, you have an MD and a PhD. So you are not just a medical doctor, you're also a scientist. So you really know a lot about your line of work.
I try to help people the best as I can. It's probably because where I came from, I have a very humble start at the beginning of my life, because I was a sick baby too. At that 6 months old, my parents, they're busy working. They couldn't really find someone to take care of me. So I was shipped to my grandma 2,000 miles away. I did not see my mother until I was almost 7.
Oh, wow.
I just grew up with grandma's bunch of auntie and uncle and cousins. It was a large, loving family. But over there, I never really learned read and write, but in a small city in the northern part of China, I was able to go to the farmland, eat all the fresh, good food. I was surrounded by love, and also I managed to learn some street sense of thing. I never learned math, but I can navigate in the market, bargain with those vendors. So from that, I actually really form a way of, I'm very open-minded. I actually really think everyone I can learn something from. And because of that, and because I was sick a lot when I was little, in the local hospital in that northern part of China, the city, the hospital know me by name. So you can see how...
You were there often.
Yeah, I'm just a very frequent visitor there. But for that, I can really relate and sense the patient's pain. And I can really understand the need for them to get well. So later on with the life, I get all kinds of exposure to different level of people. And I actually don't mind. I'm really willing to help, go extra mile to help them. So since I can sense their pain, their disease, I'm willing to help. And I happen to have a little tool in my hand. I went schooling for so many years, and I can look into nutrition, traditional medicine, and this and that. And so with all this, it really helped me in the way of finally have approaching a disease, not simply just give them prescriptions, say, hey, go home, treat the symptom. I try to treat the root cause. And that's basically it's the years who I am. And I think it's a lot of life experience all put together make who I am. Not everybody can be like this open mind, because I see the many side of many part of the world, many different cultures, and also me being a very sick little one, because mom said I was 6 months old because of frequent infection. They think I probably could never make it. But, from middle of nowhere, I come here, and I'm lucky enough, I thank God every day for whatever he gave it to me. I have the chance to help people. I'll do anything and everything to my best. This machine is also, I feel like, it's so beneficial potentially to so many people. That's why I think it's too good to not let people know about this.
And also, it's a machine that is a good investment because you'll save a lot of money in the sense of going to the grocery store and getting the really expensive fermented foods. The organic, high-quality yogurts, the high-quality kombuchas, the high-quality cottage cheese, a lot, at the end of the day, with the inflation going on right now, going to the grocery store, you leave, and it could have been $100 for just a few days, depending how big your family is. If it's just you and your spouse, then maybe it could last a week. If it's you and a bunch of kids, it could last one day. Yeah. So it's helpful because it's an investment, right? So I love that on your website, you're going to have your cookbook in there so that people can actually see how to make fermented foods and really learn about what our ancestors probably did. Doesn't matter where you were in the world, there's fermented type of history of food anywhere. I mean, every culture has cheese.
Every culture has their, the fermented food is the centerpiece.
Yeah, yeast breads, so at the end of the day, I think it's a good investment because you're going to save money.
It saves a lot.
Your health is the number one investment nonetheless.
Also this, if you're really looking at, we're being planet friendly. If you make yogurt at home, you do not need all the packaging thing. You need one glass, you use that the second day. And then the same thing for kombucha. You save so much money on those packaging, shipping, transportation, and also the freshness, how good the flavor is, and how viable of those probiotic. Homemade is by far the best. It's not even come close.
What's also really cool, as I mentioned earlier, you're a medical doctor and you also have your PhD. So you have been in school for a very long time. And you are also a scientist. You're kind of a botanist in a sense. Like you know how to grow things, food that is. So this is perfect because you're not just an investor. You're not like an influencer that just woke up one day and had an idea and tried to partner up with somebody. Like you are the face, the brand of this product. You know exactly what you needed to do to make this come to life.
That's very, very true. I was never a business person. I was blessed with a okay brain. I can do school. And I think I have still love what I do every day. I think I have a heart to be a good doctor. But this come as a surprise to the point, if it can benefit me, it can benefit so many other people. And if this one, for the fermented food, the health benefit, date back for the past 10, 15 years in PubMed, which is the largest biomedical research database, is already well recognized. Yogurt that lower the blood sugar, control the weight, make your bones stronger, decrease inflammatory response. All these things is out there. And the same thing for, I think right now, they're doing the fermented legume, which is natto beans, natto in Japan and tempeh in Indonesia. Those are all 100 years of their staple food in that region. And in Asian, there was a big name nutrition article. They find out if you feed elderly with early onset of dementia, mild, feed them with tempeh, which is a fermented soybean, 3 ounces a day, which is actually very easy because it can be quite tasty if you cook them right. In 6 months, it reversed the memory loss. The language slowed down. That is just amazing. I think
it's very anti-inflammatory and it helps the blood flow.
Yeah. And then I think people need to know this. I mean, a lot of time the scientific publication, whatever on the news, is probably there is a pushing force, either pharmaceutical company or something, but all very old, traditional, healthy food. Don't forget about them. This is how those blue zone people live to 100, and they don't have modern medicine. They do not have refrigeration. They don't have the cleanness, everything. They actually
Just have great gut health.
yeah.
Also, speaking about slowing the aging process, foods that are anti-inflammatory that help with the blood flow to the brain and just help you be able to get more oxygen to the brain. You mentioned earlier that gut health is also related to skin health, which kind of help prevent the signs of aging. And I'm also, with that being said, I'm assuming it also helps with managing a good weight. So being that mostly women, but men now too, are very big about, trying to look good every day. What advice do you give someone who's trying to slow the physical aging process? Well, I guess also internally because it's your gut health, obviously, but nonetheless, feel good and look good because you're trying to either lose weight, maintain it, and also have a great complexion.
One of the interesting thing is, I one day I have a Korean woman we do the video visit.
Koreans have the best skin.
And then it was for blood disorder because I'm also a hematologist, and she just looked gorgeous on the it's a video, but still she looked great. So I comment on her skin. I said, "You look wonderful. Is that all the kimchi?" Because I know Korean people eat a lot of kimchi, and she said, "No, kimchi is too salty, but anything fermented help with skin." Was like, what? And apparently that is to Korean woman, that's not a secret. She said, I do yogurt and kombucha, that would take care of my skin. That's exactly her word. And to me, I was like, wow, this is new. So when you really look into right now, a lot of cosmetics, serum are fermented.
Oh, that's right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then if you really look, a lot of supplement, if you go to Sprouts, go to the supplement aisle, you see mushroom are really good for immune boosting.
They even have mushroom coffee now.
They have mushroom fermented.
Okay.
Because everything fermented is easy on the gut. You absorb a lot more. So in general, for guys or for everybody, I think fermented food is a diet modification. I wouldn't say you eat yogurt day in, day out, but if you can reach out yogurt, is probably better than drink a cup of milk, because yogurt you would definitely get a lot more benefit. I mean, if you have the craving for milk, there's nothing wrong, but if you do yogurt on top of whatever you're eating, you add the benefit of this fermented dairy. And then if you do bread, sourdough bread especially, because it's fermented by 40 different microorganisms, break down about 90% of the gluten, is a lot more nutritiously absorbed than, for example, if you eat pasta. Because pasta is just the hard, kind of you make the dough and make it into the noodle shape. So that's something. And if you really eat a big chunk of hearty steak, make sure you got some sauerkraut or something. So that helps with the gut to absorb, to digest. So that's the general kind of recommendation for everybody. I think when you start to incorporate those things, you will realize your gut is working for you.
And to add to that, even though I know I brought it up earlier in the podcast, when anyone does buy yogurt or any fermented foods from the store, even though we recommend for you could buy this machine and make it at home, just read the ingredients, right? Yeah. Because they have all these fillers sometimes in food coloring. So don't buy those, because then you're not going to see the results. So spend the extra $2 and get the clean stuff. Also, to add to what you're saying, with milk, some people are lactose intolerant, but when you get like a really clean dairy product, it's interesting how people who claim that are lactose aren't at that point. Because when dairy is so refined and has all these additives, it's almost as if it kills the good bacteria, and people have a hard time digesting it. But there's been studies in other countries that it just has it where they don't have any additives or a certain way that they're processing it. People aren't lactose, like they can actually enjoy gelato or enjoy cream in their coffee.
Yeah, there's definitely, and there's right now, I don't know whether you go to the market, there's A2 milk now. A2 milk is a type of cow. They produce the milk. They label as A2. I don't know why was the A2 come from, but apparently that milk is easy on digestive tract. For whoever have lactose intolerance, they can probably handle better. So that's definitely a possibility. And the other thing is, I really believe overfed, overstuffed gut is one of the very common problem.
You see a lot of people nowadays that have an inflamed stomach.
Yeah.
They could have thin legs, thin arms, and an inflamed stomach.
That's the visceral fat, and that's because their gut is so overstuffed.
Isn't there a disease? It's not Crohn's disease, another disease where someone could be very thin but look pregnant. And it doesn't matter if it's even a man, but it has to do with the gut.
Yeah, a lot of time liver disease can do that, but a lot of time if the gut is chronically overstuffed with either processed food or unhealthy, greasy food, they really have that kind of a body build type. And so I think in general, as oncologists, I see a lot of poor outcome for men with those, we used to call them beer bellies. Yeah, when they have that, if I give them chemo, they usually have trouble. That
makes sense because chemo is so harsh on the body. And if you're not somewhat healthy beforehand, it's going to be harder. Just like when someone says, oh, if you're an active senior citizen from 75 to, God blesses you into your 80s and 90s, if you're active, just going for walks, even if it's outside or on a treadmill, even lifting some light 5-pound weights at home, helps with your muscle mass. And then God forbid if you were to slip and fall, slip and fall and break your hip or something.
You have stronger bones.
Yeah. You might just get a fracture or you'll just bounce back faster.
You heal a lot faster.
Because you've already have the muscle build and you still have the good blood flow to help you heal faster.
Very true.
Yes.
Very true.
So there's even studies, people that go in for severe surgeries, but because they're so active in their life that they're able to bounce back a little bit better. There's so much information out there now, thankfully, that we can learn. But I always suggest to everyone to make sure you're getting it from a credible source like yourself. That's why I wanted to have you on this podcast, because I'm just a journalist. So me talking about it isn't as credible as me interviewing you, who is a medical doctor. So you have your MD and you have a PhD. It's great to have you on to educate the public about the importance of gut health and how it does tie to cancer, because you're an oncologist and you deal with cancer every day, all day.
There are a group of people when I see them in the office, I know they're cooking for disease. Just the overall well-being, they have not been taking good care of themselves, and major part of it is eating. And I have to say, I finally decided to come to front and do a little bit of educational work because I think so many diseases can be prevented. If you tell the kids, try not to overeat. Watch, if you already have weight issue, then be careful, take some action. Because a lot of young kids, they don't know.
And also, they don't know. And I think our culture is so big about supersize everything. You go to a restaurant innocently celebrating someone's birthday, you order something and the plate's this big.
Yeah.
My husband and I, when we eat out, we usually just share a plate. We usually already know the restaurant. We know it's going to be a lot and we'll just share. And if for whatever reason he wants to order something different than then we'll take some home because it's just too many calories to eat sitting down. Now there's been a law that's passed, and it's I believe in all states, not just in California, where it shows the calorie count of what you're consuming, and it's insane. Like you can go somewhere like the Cheesecake Factory, and you order a dish, and it'll say 2,800 calories for one dish. Yeah, so it's best not to eat that whole thing in one sitting because you will gain weight. If you already have a big BMI, you're obese, it's going to make it worse. And then again, it's the whole rabbit hole of other health issues that could come in the future.
I couldn't count how many times, because I'm seeing blood disease patient. It would be woman come to my door, a busy stay-home mom for like 3 to 4 kids. They do everything right, but the only thing they overlook is they gain weight. Baby put on weight on you each pregnancy. And so when they reach to 50, 60, they suddenly find out, wait a minute, their blood count is low. And then you look further, sent to me. I was like, I'm sorry, honey, your liver is done. It's cirrhosis.
And she
that's
didn't drink any alcohol or
never
anything.
a single drop. And so that's basically a major category of
Fatty liver?
is fatty liver over the course of years, probably decade or two, finally becomes cirrhosis. And that's all started the very beginning, weight issue, eating habit issue never being addressed. And I have one woman just crying loud in my office that why nobody tell me being overweight can lead to cirrhosis at this early. I mean, I think these type of things, we really need to raise the public awareness because body can only handle so much stretching, like a weight per se. And so if we look at the longevity globally, the life expectancy, you will see U.S. have the best health care, supposedly have the best pharmaceutical company, the best medication, but our life expectancy just not there. And why is that? A lot of into is diet, and diet of them, one of the thing if we can educate patient is don't get too much overweight because that will hunt you down while you get older. And that's what the fermented food is. Most fermented food has the benefit of stabilized metabolism, and then you can control your weight.
And also, what are your thoughts about parasites? Now, I know right now on the internet, there's a lot of influencers trying to sell their parasite supplements and do detox this, do detox that. And sometimes you'll see an MD doctor talk about it and they say, yeah, it is good to, do a detox, but don't overdo it because you don't want to mess with your good bacteria. What are your thoughts on that, especially that kombucha has good bacteria?
Parasites in general are kind of in the category of a worm, not so much of bacteria per se. And they usually, you can get it either swim in a dirty water or eat a raw meat. With U.S. is very clean and civilized. It's really hard to see. But for people eating a lot of raw meat or fish, probably can happen. But the bottom line is it's not hard to treat. I haven't really encountered any of the parasite issues. It's probably just because of my specialty. I never get a chance to really. But to my very old knowledge, which I did in med school and microbiology, those are usually not too difficult to treat. And you just have to be careful. I mean, sometimes if you're not careful enough, they can do serious damage.
A lot of the studies that have been coming out here in the U.S. where, you get people that travel abroad, they come back and that's how they have it.
Yeah.
Or it could be people handling your food at a restaurant, or it could be eating raw fish like sushi. And another thing could be beef carpaccia, that is raw meat. Yeah. People like to eat that. Also, over easy eggs. Now with over farming, people love to have an over easy egg. They like to have an egg sandwich with the runny yolk. That could have a worm in it, a parasite that is. And so the reason why I'm asking that question, I feel like because maybe of the over farming, people not washing their hands when they're handling your food, not washing the salads properly. You can get it from salad or from dirty tap water. Let's say you happen to be visiting a loved one that lives on a ranch where they have septic tanks or something, and there could be cross-contamination.
It definitely can happen that way, yes.
But I feel like if you have good gut health, like good bacteria in your gut is what I was trying to relate it to, then your body can fight it. But if you have a suppressed immune system because you're already overweight, you eat horrible, and then you are infected by a little worm that you don't even know because some people don't even have symptoms until later on, right? I feel like it all kind of ties together with good gut health.
Very, very true. Because the gut immune system, like in the small bowel, they're very strong first-line defense. So if you eat something not so clean, if you travel to some area, the sanitary condition is not so good, immediately you notice, okay, I have diarrhea. So the body just eliminate it, flush out. It will not easily cross the lining, gut lining, and then get into your system.
Isn't it amazing how our bodies can just repair itself? Because you'll see stories on social media of someone going through like a weight loss journey and they could lose 100 pounds and look like a completely different person. They wipe out their type 2 diabetes because for anyone who doesn't know, type 2 diabetes can be reversed with health healthy life choices like eating healthy and working out. But it shows like how powerful our body is, right?
Very true.
So if someone feels like today's the day to change their life because they want to have better skin, lose weight, maybe prevent a future issue of cancer or Alzheimer's, dementia, it's good to really start now.
Never
And
too late to
fermented
change.
foods, yeah.
Never
And then,
too late.
God forbid, let's say you are suffering from cancer. It is really important to really look into your diet. I mean, I'm not saying don't do chemo at the end of the day. It's good to speak with someone like yourself, a professional, but please eat healthy. You know, the anti-inflammatory foods, organic. You know, if you are going to have an apple, make sure it's organic because they spray so much of pesticides on the food and that there it is, you're eating the chemicals again. Filtered water, you can on certain websites like Amazon, you can buy a filtration machine and just put it on your shower head. But nonetheless, there's so much good information out there on the internet. And then there's some bad because people might take advice from someone who isn't an MD doctor like yourself. So at the end of the day, it's good to get the right information.
Very true. And I want to really emphasize it's never too late to change. The minute you start take care of yourself, take control of your own health, take control of what you put in your mouth, almost in a matter of several months, you will see the difference. And that's how powerful our internal healing force is. Mm-hmm. So as long as you nourish from inside, a lot of disease just disappeared.
And I want to also talk about your cookbook really quick. Now, with your cookbook, when you explain people how to make the certain fermented foods, can they like add supplements? Like, for example, if I want to make kombucha, could I add a little bit of magnesium or can I add a little bit of certain things? Like,
that's
being
a very
that you're the
interesting
scientist
question.
Also behind this, how does all that work?
So
because I don't want to make myself sick is what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
I don't want to accidentally make something and then make it wrong and get food poisoning or have a counter issue from it.
That's a very interesting question. I don't believe I ever tried that. But so when I make kombucha, I don't simply make the tea kombucha. I add a lot of herbs, flowers, spices.
And those naturally have some
those
things
are,
like magnesium.
Those are naturally, if they naturally have magnesium, I don't worry about that. Mm-hmm. I probably wouldn't really dump a capsule into the kombucha.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And then if you're really thinking, fermentation process is more mimic our body. Our body is a big fermented tank. You know, everything goes in, regardless how green the salad you eat. The minute it drops to stomach, it will become yellow because in stomach acid is pH 1 to 2.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And then when it comes out from the large intestine, it's the color we all know.
Yeah.
The other
so
color.
For that reason, I think I don't do very exotic with adding supplement to the tea, to the kombucha, or to the yogurt. But if anything you can eat together, it should be okay to put into the fermented. That's why when I make kombucha, I put all kinds of flavor. That's why kids love it, because it's tasty and is nutritious, and it's actually very good for them. They actually see the benefit.
And also, I want to state again that your kombucha does not have alcohol. So that's why it's okay for kids.
It is actually very, because I went for a kombucha fair. That was probably a year ago, 2 years maybe. And then they have a testing station for different kombucha, how much alcohol in there. Because there is a type of kombucha called hard kombucha. That's the entire fermentation is no oxygen. And in that kombucha, the alcohol content can go up to 5.
Oh, wow.
And for mine, so I was there, majority of the fermented, if they use a very deep tank, or they actually cap it for a while before testing, they all have about 1%. So I took mine, I swirled a little bit in my glass, and as I tested, it's 0. And they said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yes, it's science in there." And it's indeed, it's 0. So
it's kind of like the new trend right now with 0-proof beers and 0-proof wines. There's a whole sober movement going on right now, which is pretty cool. But people still want to be very social. So when you go to parties, there's sometimes have like alcohol-free beers.
I think that's a good idea.
And so I wonder
actually.
if that's like something people can make at home.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure if they want to, they can make their own wine and have it, fermented the way wine is and with alcohol. But if they also want to be like, okay, well, my friend's coming over and they can't have it, so I'll make them one without alcohol. It'd be kind of a fun like dinner party idea, I think.
This machine can make all kinds of drinks as well as fermented food because it's the temperature is 50 to 115 degree Fahrenheit. It's actually filled the gap, the temperature gap in the kitchen. So if you think anything below 40, that's refrigeration or freezer, right? Above 212 is the cooking top. But in between 50 to 115 degree, that's what really the temperature close to life. Our human body temperature, 98 degree, 96. And for also is the temperature for almost all the living organism in our ecosystem is good for sprouting. So this can really make all the fermented food in all culinary category. Dairy, that's your milk, kefir, cheese, and then tea, you do kombucha, and then you do the grain, you can do sourdough. Sourdough starter in this is super quick. And
I love hearing that. On social media, there's so much talk about being a sourdough, I think it's called like sourdough wife. I don't know. Long story short, it's a bunch of stay-at-home moms that make sourdough bread, and it's like all over TikTok. I think it's just a trend, but it's interesting because this might make it easier for them than putting the dough in a I don't know how to make it, but yeah, they put like a towel over it. Anyways, I think this would be a lot easier for them.
So besides the grain, another major part of fermented food is the legumes. So we can do the natto, which is a staple food for Japanese, and there's so many scientific benefit.
Also ginger, parts of ginger.
Yeah, you can do that, and you can do tempeh, which is the one I just cited. And if you feed elderly with early dementia, they get better. And then the other thing is vegetable. So you can do pickled vegetables, sauerkraut, and kimchi. This is all because you give very consistent temperature. Everything is like clockwork. And that's how beautiful it is. When the temperature consistent, you really don't need to worry about contamination either, because the contaminant of mold or different kind of a bad bacteria is because the temperature is so awkward for the good bacteria to grow. If they are really thriving and grow fine, they will have kind of a repellent, they will eliminate all the bad ones. So this indeed, and also interesting, the machine is a semiconductor powered, it can cool too. Not simply heating, it can cool. So if it's 95 degree out there, you said, I want to make kimchi at 70. Yeah, will do it. And then it can be a cabinet storage for medicine or makeup if it's really hot. Or the other thing is if someone making home sprouting, because the seed sprout at right around 70, 75 degrees. If you do the home sprouting is another very nutritious way of eating food, because when the seed, they germinate, the minute they kind of sprout, they have a kind of nuclear explosion level of nutrition upgrade to the point that's the most nutritious phase you can eat a seed. So if you ever do home sprouting, with this machine, it can shorten the time about 48 hours compared to you do that at room temperature, because you just provide ideal temperature for the little life to thrive. And one last thing is whoever into curing meat, if this temperature 85 degree, you can never cure meat. But with this temperature go down to 50, yes, you can cure meat about 24, 48 hours. Make jerkies, and it's a beautiful thing. And the other thing is the wine cooling ability. You can adjust temperature by degree, try to see what exactly the temperature of the wine you would like.
That's amazing. I'm so excited to start, because I know you're gifting me one. So I am going to read everything in your cookbook so I don't mess up anything. And I'm really excited to try it out. And I'm going to start with the kombucha, and then I want to see from there like how I can perfect it, and then just see maybe I can do
the easiest
dill pickles or other stuff.
Yeah, the easiest one is yogurt.
Yeah, I think I could do
take
yogurt.
less than 30 seconds, you make a cup.
Really?
Yeah.
30 seconds?
I
thought it would be overnight.
No, take it to prepare. And then you leave it, you forget it. And this machine also have a very interesting function setting is after fermentation, it will start cooling process. So for example, you ferment the yogurt for 10 hours and you forgot you are out of the house, this machine will cool down to 50 degrees Fahrenheit as a fridge. So it will not over ferment. It will lock the flavor, lock the freshness. That's the other thing. So what I mentioned about the easiest thing to make yogurt is because you only take 30 seconds to scoop oat yogurt out in the cup, mix, pour milk, cover, put in. That's 30 seconds. And then when you come home from work, you have the fresh yogurt to eat.
That's amazing.
That's how simple it is.
I'm learning so much right now on how to even prepare fermented foods. And I'm really excited to take this machine home. But what are some common myths that you get from someone like myself who's naive about how to make food like this at home instead of going to the supermarket and buying it? What are common myths that you get asked all the time?
I think the most time people are afraid it will go bad. And so that's a very common thing. But I do want to reassure, in the old days, our ancestors, thousands of years ago, they were able to do it. You have to trust the process.
And then you put it in your refrigerator after.
Yeah.
Back then, they didn't even have that.
That's exactly. And also, the other thing about getting contaminated is most of the time your starter was not healthy, or the temperature was all over the place. So the beneficial bacteria, they just don't feel comfortable to completely proliferate and thrive. And this machine fixed the issue. As long as you start relative clean, just regular, you wash your dishes and use that cup to do fermentation, majority of the case, you'll be fine. Just trust the process. And also the other thing is use common sense. If it's really smell like horrible or look like totally off, then just toss them and start a new batch. But most of the time is just relax and try it. And you'll be surprised, that thousands of years across the globe, every country, the fermented food is the centerpiece of their culinary kind of history. And so we should be repeated. And especially with this very precise temperature control thing. Mm-hmm. And the other big thing is there is a common myth of, fermented food, it could give you gastric cancer, which in certain area there are reported, especially in Japan and Korea, South Korea. But then you have to look at other risk factor coexist while patients have the gastric cancer, the stomach cancer. Is usually those type of patients are chronic drinking alcohol, and also their fermented food.
Raw meats too.
Yeah, also fermented food. If, for example, you make it with tons of salt, salt is really bad. If you think when we cure meat, we use salt, and the stomach is very acidic. So with high acidity, with high salt, you basically fix the damaging the mucosa of the gastric, the stomach, very bad. So as long as you control the salt content of the fermenting process, you should be fine. And if you really worry whether fermented food can be harsh on your stomach, cook them. When you cook them, it will be cooking process will be very, very beneficial for the stomach. You help the stomach to do the job. Stomach job is to grind the food into the puree form so it passes to the small bowel to be absorbed. If you cook them well, the stomach doesn't need to do a whole lot of job. And then it will just move on to the next step of the digestive tract. So those, I think, is the information is out there. I don't want everybody to be scared. If that's the case, no one will eat fermented food. But on the other hand, all over the world, people have been really on their regular diet.
And you bringing up, colon cancer, as we've been talking about that throughout this podcast, a lot of it too is when people don't have the healthy balance, right? Yeah. Like they need to have the probiotics, the fiber, and adding kombucha, drinks or any type of fermented foods isn't really gonna make you have cancer. At the end of the day, maybe you're having too much raw fish like sushi or bloody meat that your body's not breaking down very well. Like as you mentioned, it's good to cook your red meats, and having it not cooked very well is actually bad for your gut health.
It can be a bit burdensome to the digestive tract. You know, the way in human history, culinary history, revolution, when we have the fire, when we have the tool to cut, when we have the fermentation, it's all serve one purpose, is to give the gut extra help. So whatever food get into our body is easily absorbed, so they don't have to do extra work. That's what the purpose is. I mean, I know out there a lot of young people like the rare steak. I used to love it too, but I realized when I'm getting older, I just don't handle it as good. It's probably my gut is age as well. So it's everything with moderation. For food wise, I do recommend a very self-awareness of what you put in your mouth, and then everything with moderation. I'm not a strong kind of opinion about certain like vegan or carnivore, or I just say everything was balanced. It should be okay.
Very well said. And to our audience, when you do buy this product, I'm assuming you're going to have, aside from your cookbook, you're going to have like a how-to manual. So it'll be really cool because I know we talked a lot right now in this podcast, but you're going to have your how-to manual, and that's really going to explain the different temperatures for the certain food that you're trying to cure, and the how to do the kombucha properly. And you said it very well too. Like if for whatever reason something doesn't come out right, it's okay to throw it away and try again. Think of it as like cooking in general.
Yeah,
like you're
it's
learning to
common
cook
sense,
a new culinary food from another country. You might have put too much of something, and let's say you're making Indian food and you put the wrong kind of spices or the wrong kind of curry and it just doesn't look or smell good. You're like, okay, I messed up. I'll try again tomorrow.
Yeah, of course.
But it's okay to give it a shot, and your health is number one. If you don't have health, you don't really have anything. Health is wealth, isn't it?
Very, very true. I knew, as an oncologist, I cannot agree more because I live a very simple life, to the point my daughter always say, you do not need anything. Like I told you, I don't even own a kind of any luxury goods, because to me, we all live once, and what's really the most precious, valuable stuff, they're not things. And
Very well
health,
said.
health
It's
is
our
number
health.
one.
Yes, very well said.
True.
Thank you again for taking the time to speak with me here on the show. And I'm a huge advocate for health and wellness. So being able to sit with someone like yourself, an oncologist for over 20 years, and really being able to dive deep in this conversation about cancer awareness, prevention, and also about your device, Ferment Pro, and how fermented foods can really, really cure our gut health and make our gut health, in a sense where it's fighting disease and preventing disease.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Yes, and for everyone who has tuned in, you can go to her website. It's here at the bottom of the screen. And you can also get her cookbook on the website, and there's a how-to manual for the machine as well. And again, I'm so happy we're able to educate the public about cancer awareness, how to prevent, all these crazy diseases we have today. And gut health is so important. So thank you very much, Dr. Hu. Until next time, I'm Yenitza Munoz.